Well, hello, Nativity Bible Heads. It is Dr. Wayne, and this is Bible Study Wednesday. And we are in the midst of the season of Lent, but we are back into our trek through the entire Bible, and we are in 1 Kings tonight. We are in chapter 13. Now, one of the things that we got to remind ourselves of whenever we are looking at these books, in the Christian canon, the way we label them as historical or history, that's getting kind of loose with the word history. Okay, in the Jewish canon, the books of the Kings are in the category of what's called the former prophets. As opposed to the latter prophets. The latter prophets are the ones that actually are books that bear the names of prophets, like Jeremiah and Isaiah, Hosea, those guys. 1 Kings is the last of the books that they labeled the former prophets. The way 1 Kings got constructed is now, okay, right now we're dealing with the story of Solomon's son and the northern kingdom when they split off. And this is the late 10th century, okay? The book was actually put together, compiled initially in the 7th century, so 300 years later. And then it got finalized later on, more like into the 5th century, probably. In the book itself, we don't just have narration of the kings, okay? We also have stories of prophets. And what probably happened was a form of the Deuteronomistic history, that is Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings. The Deuteronomistic history had an early form that a later redactor, we call them editors usually today, but the redactor would, there was like large chunks of material that he wanted to incorporate into the narrative. And so we get these stories of the prophets. Why am I mentioning this today? I'm mentioning this today because 1 Kings chapter 13 is going to be consumed by a story of a couple of prophets. And interestingly enough, neither one of them has a name. Now, later on in Kings, we're going to get into some named prophets that you've heard of, like Elijah and Elisha, which we had a Sunday reading not too long ago about. But pay attention to this. When we have what we have in the Bible is it's a highly redacted book. Okay, the whole Bible is highly redacted, which means that it's got layers upon layers of different people working on it at different times. Okay, there did come a point where they said, okay, that's it. Even in today's day and age, though, if you think about it, with the way we do translations, do they not include and do they change words and meanings and such that do change something? Yes, not to the degree though that it happened in the pre-history of it. So in chapter 13, remember where we left off in chapter 12, David's son Solomon just died, and his son Rehoboam took over the throne, but only for the southern tribe of Judah and Benjamin. And a rival, Jeroboam, was named king of the northern kingdom. Now, in chapter 12, Jeroboam introduced some religious practices that the narrator decries and condemns heartily, okay? One of those things was the establishment of the worship centers in Dan, which is way at the very north, and Bethel, which was way at the very south, almost bordering on Judah. And the stories about Jeroboam will emphasize how wrong he was, okay? Chapter 13 is entirely a story inside the reign of Jeroboam. Okay, when the final redactor that got a hold of these stories in Kings is somebody from the southern kingdom that of Judah, where Rehoboam, Solomon's son, the line of David was. So they're going to have a particular slant that makes the kings of Judah definitely look better than the kings of the north. Jeroboam is the first of the kings of the north. So no matter what he does, even if Jeroboam himself had the best of intentions as king, it's going to get judged harshly by the narrator, because the narrator is coming from a Judean, the southern kingdom perspective. So therefore, there's really nothing good that he could possibly do in the eyes of the narrator in reality. The sin of Jeroboam is one of the things that we're going to hear about later, is a reference to the building of these sanctuaries in Dan, the northern border of the northern kingdom, and Bethel, the southern border of the northern kingdom. The Judean perspective held that the only valid worship of the Lord, meaning the God of Moses, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God that brought them out of Egypt and all of that, that there's the only valid place is Jerusalem. So therefore, any kind of worship outside Jerusalem is going to be judged harshly. This was the viewpoint of the narrator. Verse 1, 1 Kings chapter 13. Right now, I bet you all feel so educated. It's like you're like, ooh, I gotta let that sink in. But no, we're going forward, okay? Hang in there. While Jeroboam was standing by the altar to offer incense, okay, we're going to go back to the previous verse, the last verse of the previous chapter, just above it, chapter 12, verse 33. He went, this is a reference to Jeroboam, the king of the northern kingdom. He went up to the altar that he had made in Bethel on the 15th day in the 8th month, in the month that he alone had devised. So he even created a whole new calendar. He appointed a festival for the people of Israel, and he went up to the altar to offer incense. Verse 1 of chapter 13. While Jeroboam was standing by the altar to offer incense, see how that's in the same flow, a man of God, no name, just a man of God, a prophet, which we'll come to see. A man of God came out of Judah by the word of the Lord to Bethel and proclaimed against the altar by the word of the Lord and said, "Oh, altar, altar, thus says the Lord." This is really odd. We don't usually, when prophetic oracles come out of prophets' mouths, they usually are directed at somebody. But not this one. It gets directed at the actual altar. Remember, these were judged harshly by our Judean narrator. "O altar, altar, thus says the Lord, a son shall be born to the house of David, Josiah by name, and he shall sacrifice on you the priests of the high places who offer incense on you, and human bones shall be burned on you. He gave a sign the same day, saying, This is the sign that the Lord has spoken. The altar shall be torn down, and the ashes that are on it shall be poured out. Okay, so this unnamed prophet from Judah goes to Bethel. Remember, Bethel is the southern border city, if you will, of the northern kingdom. So it's not that far from Jerusalem, not that far from Judah. He comes and basically proclaims a word against the altar, saying, oh, it's going to all come crashing down. He predicts, we see this name Josiah. Okay, who is Josiah? Josiah is a king that will arise in around the year 620, so the 7th century. So this is like, this is the narrator being highly coy in the fact that the narrator knows that Josiah, oh, by the way, the narrator is familiar with Josiah and loves Josiah. Oh boy, does he love Josiah. Josiah is like, the best king ever. Well, besides David. But Josiah, when he becomes king of Judah, he is one that will cleanse the worship and purify the worship of Yahweh. And part of it is by, I think some priests are going to die. Priests of the non-Yahwistic religions are going to die. And anyway, he's going to tear down these altars. He's saying that this Josiah is the Josiah under whom the book of Deuteronomy, remember back when we were talking about the book of Deuteronomy, where they were doing a renovation of the temple in Jerusalem, and they found a book of the law. And many scholars believe that what they found was the heart of, if you will, like the nut of the book of Deuteronomy, what became, but then of course it got expanded and extended. But and the Deuteronomistic historian then tells the rest of the history, if you will, after that point, through the viewpoint of the Judeans, okay, of the southern kingdom, the good guys, as it were. Okay, all right. So this man of God, we're in chapter 13. He just finished verse 3. Then we're beginning with verse 4. When the king heard what the man of God cried out against the altar at Bethel, Jeroboam, that's the king, stretched out his hand from the altar, saying, "Seize him!" But the hand that he stretched out against him withered, so that he could not draw it back to himself. This would make a great little bio or little picture, a little motion picture. The altar also was torn down, and the ashes poured out from the altar, according to the sign that the man of God had given by the word of the Lord. By the way, that's a little bit of the narrator's plugging in something that happens hundreds of years later, but he throws it in here just to make sure we get the point that this shouldn't stand. Verse 6, the king, this is Jeroboam, said to the man of God, this is the unnamed prophet, "Entreat now the favor of the Lord your God, and pray for me, so that my hand may be restored to me." So the man of God entreated the Lord, and the king's hand was restored to him, and became as it was before. So this is diving deeper into this little legendary, if you will, story of this unnamed prophet, how Jeroboam suffered with his hand because he was at this pagan altar that he had built in the eyes of our narrator from Judah, and his hand withered, and so he begs the man of God, "Oh, please restore it." He does. Okay, verse 7. Then the king said to the man of God, "Come home with me and dine. I will give you a gift." But the man of God said to the king, if you give me half your kingdom, I will not go in with you, nor will I eat food or drink water in this place. For thus I was commanded by the word of the Lord, you shall not eat food or drink water or return by the way you came. So the man of God, this unnamed man of God from Judah, is basically saying, I took this assignment on the agreement that I was not going to get any compensation, no food, no water. In fact, I'm not even supposed to take the same road back. I'm supposed to go back a different way. The idea is that he's making a circuit, okay? Look at this. Verse 10. So he went another way and did not return by the way that he had come to Bethel. So it's basically saying, so that this unnamed man of God, this prophet, he basically fulfills the task that was given him. He was told to go, give them this word, the word of judgment about the temple at Bethel, and don't take any compensation for it, but come back and don't come back the way you went there. I don't know what that's about. Maybe it's about the fact that maybe he's, in case they set a trap for him or something, I don't know. Verse 11. Now, we're going to get into and it sounds like, oh, okay, well, it's a nice little story. Well, no, it's going to get a little deeper here because we're going to have another prophet and there's going to be an interaction. So stay tuned. Now, there lived an old prophet in Bethel. One of his sons came and told him all that the man of God had done that day in Bethel. The words also that he had spoken to the king, they told to their father. So basically, this old prophet had sons. They saw everything that happened, heard everything that happened with this unnamed man of God, with Jeroboam, and they come home and tell dad. Their father said to them, this is the boy's old prophet dad, okay? Their father said to them, well, which way did he go? And his son showed him the way that the man of God who came from Judah had gone. Then he said to his sons, saddle a donkey for me. That means I'm going to ride. I'm going to go find that guy. We don't know exactly why. The narrator doesn't get into the motivation of this old prophet. But remember, he was told about the interaction with Jeroboam, so that he does know that he had brought a word of judgment about the altar at Bethel. And if this old prophet is in Bethel, where he lives, maybe he's motivated by, wait a second, that can't work out too well for me. Maybe that's part of his motivation. But the narrator doesn't tell us. Verse 14. He went after the man of God and found him sitting under an oak tree. So this guy is heading back to Judah. He's not taking the same route that he took there. And here he is. He's at a rest stop, okay? He said to him, are you the man of God who came from Judah? He answered, I am. Then he said to him, come home with me and eat some food. Remember, he was already told he wasn't supposed to do this. But he said, oh, I cannot return with you or go in with you, nor will I eat food or drink water with you in this place. For it was said to me by the word of the Lord, you shall not eat food or drink water there or return by the way that you came. It's like this man of God, this unnamed man of God, is very clear on what his mission was and what it was supposed to look like and how it was supposed to get done. So it's like, the idea was like, it's very clear cut, not anything in doubt by him. Then the other said to him, this is the old prophet from Bethel. I also am a prophet as you are. And an angel spoke to me by the word of the Lord, bring him back. This is a lie, okay? Bring him back with you into your house so that he may eat food and drink water. but he was deceiving him. This is nice. Our narrator doesn't always give us insight into what somebody's thinking, but here we do. Verse 19, then the man of God went back with him and ate food and drank water in his house. So apparently, this man of God, who was very clear on what his mission was, all it takes is for an old prophet to come up and say, oh, well, an angel told me this about you. And he's like, what? Really? Oh, well, who am I to question that? So, and he goes with him. This can't end well. It can't. Pay attention. This is funny. This is actually, look at this. Verse 20. As they were sitting at the table, the word of the Lord came to the prophet who had brought him back. That's the old prophet that lives in Bethel. And he proclaimed to the man of God who came from Judah, thus says the Lord, because you have disobeyed the word of the Lord and have not kept the commandment of the Lord your God commanded you, but have come back and have eaten food and drunk water in the place of which he said to you, eat no food and drink no water, your body shall not come to your ancestral tomb. So this is the old prophet basically saying, oh, that story that you bought earlier, it was a lie. He's kind of rubbing his face in it. Verse 23, after the man of God had eaten food and had drunk, they saddled for him a donkey belonging to the prophet who had brought him back. Then as he went away, this is the man of God who had been deceived, broke his promise by eating and drinking. Look what happens. A lion met him on the road and killed him. His body was thrown in the road and the donkey stood beside it. The lion also stood beside the body. People passed by and saw the body thrown in the road with the lion standing by the body. And they came and told it in the town where the old prophet lived. They're saying, now this is quite a sight. What's going on here is that the lion is a representative of the judgment of God, that because the man had broken his promise. Notice how the lion doesn't behave like a lion should, which is, lions just don't kill to kill. Lions kill to eat. And what do they like to eat? Well, usually donkeys. And he's standing right next to the donkey and he doesn't even do anything with the donkey. So this is our clue that we're getting a word of legend here, okay? A word from legend. But the idea here is that there is judgment for this prophet, the man of God, for going back on his promise. And so everybody saw what happened, and so then they go back and tell the old prophet. Verse 26. When the prophet who had brought him back from the way heard of it, he said, it is the man of God who disobeyed the word of the Lord. Therefore the Lord has given him to the lion, which has torn him and killed him according to the word that the Lord spoke to him. Then he said to his sons, saddle a donkey for me. So he gets the word. He's like, I gotta go see this. Well, that's kind of the way it was supposed to go. So I'm not surprised, but let's go see it for ourselves. Saddle a donkey for me. So they saddled one, and he went and found the body thrown in the road, and the donkey and the lion standing beside the body. That little factoid gets reiterated as a reminder that for the lion, if the lion wanted to eat, if this was just some wild-ass lion, this wild lion that's just out there, it's like looking for food, he would have attacked the donkey and eaten the donkey. That's what they do. Okay. The lion had not eaten the body or attacked the donkey. That's the last sentence of verse 28. Now verse 29. The prophet took up the body of the man of God, laid it on the donkey, and brought it back to the city to mourn and to bury him. This old prophet, it's like, okay, he lied to get that guy to break his promise. He did, and now he's bringing his dead body back. He laid the body in his own grave, verse 30, and they mourned over him, saying, alas, my brother. After he had buried him, he said to his sons, when I die, bury me in the grave in which the man of God is buried. Lay my bones beside his bones. So he ends up treating him mercifully, even though he lied to him that got him killed. Interesting, huh? For the saying that he proclaimed by the word of the Lord against the altar in Bethel and against all the houses of the high places that are in the cities of Samaria shall surely come to pass. So he recognized that this man truly delivered the word of truth, okay? And he knew it, and he knew that that would bode well for him, even though he had gotten him killed. We don't see any moral judgment here at all by the narrator. This is the old prophet recognizing the truth of the word of the Lord that came from the man of God from Judah, and there is no moral judgment around the little fib that he told that ended up having him break the man of God from Judah break his promise, that ended up getting him killed. And now, none of that matters, okay? We might have trouble with that in our narrative mind, in our morality structure that we have, but that's not what the story isn't addressing the morality of lying, of telling a fib, of saying, oh, an angel told me that you can eat. And no, not really. You got suckered. No judgment around that at all. Very little of the Bible deals with judging morality, especially in narratives of this type. In the end, the old prophet does recognize that this man of God, unnamed, from Judah, was indeed a true prophet, and that the truth that he spoke was truth. It was true truth, as opposed to false truth, right? It was true truth. The altar in Bethel and all the high places, okay? High places is a code for non-Yahwistic altars, other religions, and this is the judgment that the narrator is agreeing with. Verse 33, even after this event, Jeroboam did not turn from his evil way, but made priests for the high places again from among all the people. Any who wanted to be priests, he consecrated for the high places. This matter became sin to the house of Jeroboam, so as to cut it off and to destroy it from the face of the earth. And that's where the story will continue into. But that last verse had more, or two verses, had more to do with the next pericope, which we will handle next week in chapter 14. So I hope that you can cull something there. These stories, these legendary type stories, are part and parcel of what we get in the Bible. It's a stew. The Bible is a stew. People added things. They didn't want. They knew this story. It's like, oh, we got to find a way to fold that in, and this is how it looks. Some of the seams are a little rough, and the edges are a little jaggedy, but we can detect that. When we can begin to see this kind of artistry in the narrative, we can actually start to appreciate it on another level as far as storytelling and that kind of thing. And this chapter is actually highly analyzed in higher biblical literature critical circles in its artful storytelling. And we don't have time to go into all that, but this is just an example of some more prophetic stories that we'll find. There's going to be a lot of prophetic stories that get inserted into the Book of Kings, and this is an example of much more of that to come. There you go, folks. 30 minutes of your life that you'll never get back. But thank you for spending that with me, and blessings on your Lenten journey. Peace.